Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Jason Crosby on Phil Lesh.
I would be remiss if we didn't address the pink elephant in the room, and that you've played quite a bit with Phil Lesh, and you are now part of the Grateful Dead story. I would say, how do you approach it? Did you just want to talk a little bit about of what it's like to walk in the room and work with Phil Lesh? Do you guys rehearse, or is it all just show up for the gig?
We've rehearsed over the years, and we rehearsed at the gig. Sometimes for hours. Um, I would say when I first started playing with Phil, and at the time I was playing with Bob a lot. Over the years I've played with Bob probably once or twice a year since then. But in that first year, I played with him as often as I played with Phil, like on a weekly basis, and in that first year, it obviously it was undeniable for me, having been to Dead shows and my older brother being a taper and all that, that this was something that was super special, and whether it lasts a month or a year or longer, it'll be special to me, and it always has been. But as the years have gone on, it's just these have just become my friends and peers. I feel like like we were talking about family. The Leshes have treated me like we're family. Where I've been to their house. One of the other things, other than staying at Roger's place, which I'm so grateful for. That was an amazing time to have at Rogers. I also was able to be embraced by the Lesh family during that same time, where we would play out on his back deck and just casually play music, and even outside of the pandemic, be able to come inside and have dinner with him and the family, and Graham and I have become really good friends, and Brian, and we've all played music together, and it's just you think about the Grateful Dead aspect, or the lore of it, because it just becomes natural after a while. But then later, like because of social media or something, like recently, I've been getting all of these 10-year ago memories. And it's kind of that same feeling that I had 10 years ago. It has now come back this year a little bit because of kind of what you said, like, wow, like it has been 10 years, and, over their 50, 60-year history, that's significant time now. Like that's not a little blip. So that has come back, and kind of made me just more, for lack of a better word, grateful for that, this time and experience. It's humbling, and it's ongoing. I mean, I've got shows with Phil in July and September. It's just like, man, it's every time another tour comes around, it's like, I going into 2020, I thought I had this thing with Jackson and Phil and O'Teal, and it all kind of went away, but now it's come back, and like,
Better than
I'm
ever.
just it's really better than ever.
And how did you hook up with Bobby and Phil?
Well, it was through God Street Wine. Back to Low. Uh, so I was a later day member of God Street, and in 2012 they reunited and did Jam Cruise, and were wanting to kind of get back out there. And their manager is a Long Island friend of mine, Matt Bush, who I've known since we were
I know
kids.
Matt. I'm buddies with Matt.
Yeah, so our buddy Matt is taking care of God Street, and God Street wanted to bring me out as kind of like a six man. It was their original five, but they brought me out as kind of somebody that could play double keys and violin, and and they were kind of doing the Grateful Dead trifecta of TRI, Terrapin, and Sweetwater. And so I was just kind of thrown into this mix, and and it was really, Phil noticing me playing violin that really got it all kicked off. So when we went to Terrapin, um, there was only one keyboard there. So Bevo played keys and I played violin. And Matt and Phil sat on the stairs at Terrapin. And apparently, as the story goes, Phil turned to Matt and said, "Who's that guy? And what is that instrument he's playing?" And he's like, "That's Jason. It's a, and I told him about the 6-string violin and how it had a viola string and a cello string. And so he asked Matt for my info. So Matt hit me to that later and was like, "Hey, you may be getting a call or an email from Phil." And I did. And he invited me down to sit in at the Wellmont. And so I went and sat in at the Wellmont. And up until this point, he still didn't know that I played keys. He just thought that I played violin. And then
I love that.
on the encore at the Wellmont, I was friends with the whole band. It was Jackie and Commenti and Russo, and I knew all these guys. And Phil really liked that, like when he came in, he was like thinking that he'd have to introduce me to everybody. He's like, "Oh, you already know him." And so Commenti invited me to play keyboards with him for the encore, and I was like, should we tell Phil? And he's like, no, we don't have to. And I think Phil was really stoked that I could play keys as well. And then he invited God Street Wine out to play a week long at Terrapin a couple months after that. And so then we got to play some more. And at that time, Matt called me and said, "Hey, Bobby's got this webcast called We're Here that he does every Wednesday. We had a last minute guest cancel. Can you think of somebody to bring on as a guest?" And I was staying at Shanna Morrison's house, who was Van Morrison's daughter, who lived down the street from the studio. And so I was like, what do you think about Shanna? And he's like, "That's perfect. You and Shanna show up tomorrow," or whatever it was. And so we come, and Shanna doesn't play an instrument. So all the music was being done by Bob and I as a duo. And so we got to play a lot. And he was like, "Hey, what do you think about coming and doing this next week?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I just kept staying, because I lived in New York City, right?
Right.
So I just kept staying, and I had like Bob and Phil wanting to play music with me. They both got clubs, they have studio. And so I just took a sign from the universe that I needed to, you
Go
know,
West, son.
go west, son. Yeah, seriously. I mean, between the experience with God Street and at the Wellmont and then at Terrapin and then at TRI, it just made it just I just felt it. I felt like if I and Bob even said it to me. I mean, Bob said, like, "If you move here, I'll keep you working."
Right.
I mean that, and once he said that, and once I
I'm
moved,
in. I'm in.
yeah. So that was my first job there. Was really, I was employed by TRI first, but it was like Phil who recognized me first, right? And then it was Bob who really kind of hired me full time first, that enabled the move. But then once I moved, I was at Terrapin all the time, and TRI, the way it was, kind of ended at the end of 2013. But Phil's thing was just taken off. So like it, it, all in the end, it was the best move I made in my life, probably.
Right. Now, when Phil says, "I want you to come play with me," does he have the set list written up? Do you have to learn? Like, how did you learn all the songs? I mean, the catalog is incredibly huge, and Phil plays has 70, 80 songs probably available to him at any given
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, I luckily I had some history playing in a few bands like the Zen Tricksters and Solar Circus, where I had some knowledge, and also just from going to shows and knowing the Grateful Dead. But it wasn't as in like my knowledge then wasn't nearly what it is now. So for the first year, basically I would get a set list, whether it be the day before or the day of, or if I was lucky, a week before. But usually, generally, the day before or the day of, I'd look down the list and go to, Robbie Taylor or whoever was working at the time and say, I need a chart for this, I need a chart for that, and that. And, it ended up being like that first year, I would say 2013, there would probably be like one or two songs a set that I would need to like take a look at some music. And then as that year went on, I stopped really needing it, because I've
Right.
got pretty good retention and whatnot. So I was able to just kind of remember the stuff. And now, like, occasionally there'll be a moment where I'll take a snapshot of Graham's iPad. It'll be like, oh, like, we're playing Pride of Cucamonga. What's that one little middle section where the chords are weird for 12 bars? Like, let me take a look at that, just give myself a reminder. But for the most part, I've got the catalog. I feel like I've got the catalogs of just about all the artists I'm working with now down and memorized, which is where I want to be.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.